Today marks the end of the third week of legislative session. There's a total of 9, so we're about a third of the way there. Um, and it's getting a little more exciting. As you can see on the report, we're starting to see a lot more red. So things are starting to move. And I'll start with our bill, House Bill 619. It's the sovereign immunity for um, sub CEIs, and that bill was in committee yesterday in Transportation and Modals. It passed easily, unanimously, because of a change that's been made. And what that is we put language in there. Current statute only applies to FDOT projects, and it's just sovereign immunity only applies to the prime. So the court case that spurred all of this, is about a sub CEI on an FDOT project. The amendment to the bill yesterday, we had put in language that said the state and its political subdivisions, which means cities and counties. The trial lawyers were balking at that, so the sponsors said, let's just fix the problem we have, and so we agreed to the change to take out the political subdivision so that we're back to FDOT. It still gets us, sovereign immunity for these sub CEIs, which they don't currently have. I thought when we first started with this bill, it's something we had or that they had, and this court case was changing that, but there aren't very many court cases out there, according to Kurt, and this being a big one. It'll still be a good thing, and to get that protection for these sub CEIs. So anyway, that's got the trial lawyers off our back, and like I said, the bill passed unanimously yesterday. There was very little discussion on it. Our sponsor keeps wanting to use the words contractor and subcontractors, which gets some people up like, why are we giving contractors sovereign immunity? And so the committee chair was in what knew what was going on, so she just had the sponsor clarify it. And once she did, that it only applies to the small group of engineers that are subs to Prime, doing inspections of road and bridge projects for FDOT. So having said all that, that bill's moving, and hopefully we won't have a lot of problems with it. The Senate companion, Senate Bill 1534, is up in its first committee on Monday. So we'll be checking, to make sure everything's okay there. They're going to do the same amendment. And so there shouldn't be any opposition to the bill, and I wouldn't anticipate, any problems. Derek, are you hearing anything at this point other than that?
Other than that, I'm not hearing anything, Alan.
Okay. So I think we're good there. Moving on to House Bill 149. That was also heard yesterday, and an amendment was put on the bill to take out the language applying to the geotechs that our members objected to. So for all intents and purposes, we're now okay with this bill. It'll come out of the Senate bill on Monday when it's heard at its next committee stop. And I appreciate Anant's help with that and working with us to solve that issue. Basically, what's going to happen is Tom had recommended, John and I had lunch with Anant on Martin Luther King Day, and I had some stuff from Tom that, about what they do in districts 2 and 3. And those of you that live in the FDOT world know, FDOT leadership wants to let the districts make a lot of decisions. And so what they do in districts 2 and 3 seem to be working as far as, the continuing contracts, with the geotechs. And maybe it's not even that. I think it is continuing contracts, and the number of people that they're contracting with. And that's problem was in District 4, there's 2 companies basically that have gotten all the continuing contracts since 2005. And FTBA, didn't like that. So they're going to work with the secretary. The secretary has promised that, we'll get that fixed. and we don't need the legislature weighing in on those types of things. So the only thing left in that bill really is the threshold for construction and continuing contracts. And that's now set at 7.5 million rather than 10 million. So I think that bill's poised to move along as well. The continuing ed requirements, this one will be coming off of our list, but I just wanted to mention it one more time. The Senate bill last week, or maybe even the week before, 10 days ago, the engineers were removed from that bill. That's the one that would say you don't need any CEUs if after you've had 10 years of licensure. So we have been removed from that bill, and unless they put us back, we have no more interest in that bill. And you can see the House version of that hasn't even been heard yet, so I don't know, if it's got legs at all anymore, but we shall see.
Hey, Alan.
I'm sorry.
Hey, this is JW. I got a question. I know I'd spoken with you about the surveyors. Do you know if they're still included in that, or what that is?
You know what, JW, I don't. I remember the question, but I'll look that up, see if they're still involved.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I know,
Because some of our firms do survey also, so.
right. Yeah, yeah, I know there's a long line of people that are trying to get out of that bill. So, but I'll check and see where the surveyors are.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay, so alternative mobility funding systems. I had taken this bill when I first read it, several weeks back, as limiting impact fees, really what it is. And you can see it's passed two of its committees in the House and two of its committees in the Senate. It's getting unanimous votes. What it really does is it's getting the local governments as part of their comprehensive plans to implement mobility funding, based on usage rather than just a tax, basically. The impact fees are still there, but they limit them from raising them because they're going to provide an alternative source of funding. So we had taken a position of opposing this bill, but I don't think that's necessary anymore. And CLGR meets at 11 o'clock, so I think I'll have ask them to switch that. Because obviously it's very popular. We've talked with Senator Bradley and others, and they're all very much in favor of this bill. So I'm not sure opposition would be successful in the first place. But I think I know I misread it when I first saw the bill, so, and had explained it wrong. So I'll work with CLGR on that here a little later.
Hey, Alan, this is Melissa. On that bill, it's a little bit of a battle between the cities and the counties.
Mm-hmm.
The counties don't want a whole lot of flexibility on how those impact fees are spent, and the cities have wanted that flexibility to be able to do alternative projects utilizing those impact fees, and the cities haven't been able to resolve that. And the cities threatened a few years ago, if you don't fix it, the legislature will. And I think that that's a little bit of the history behind that bill.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. All right, moving on to sovereign immunity again. This one just increases the limits on liability. It is on the agenda for its first stop in the Senate on Monday. It has passed one committee in the House, but hasn't seen any action in 2 weeks. So not sure exactly where that stands. We're against it just for the, it only takes it from $200,000 to $400,000, but we just know that increases the liability for, especially on CEIs that are working as agents of the state. I'll keep an eye on it. It's getting a late start, as a lot of these bills are, not having their first hearing until the fourth week. Derek, what's the last week of committee meetings scheduled for,
Is that for first committee reference, Alan, or just in general?
just in general.
So is day 50, which would be the 27th of February.
Okay, so there's still time, but the time is getting short, so we'll
Correct.
keep an eye on that one. And then that moves me to the DOT bills. And Melissa, I'm gonna ask you to join in on this. You had expressed some concern about this bill and the liability section of this bill. I've spoken with, there were a few members from our transportation committee leadership that looked at that bill when it first came out. Once you expressed your concerns, because I hadn't heard any from anybody else, I got with Kurt Brown, our general counsel, and Anant. We had a call yesterday to talked about it for about a half an hour on just that subject. And we're just not seeing that this causes the engineers a problem. And our general counsel agrees with that. Do you have something specific that that somebody in WGI is concerned about? I mean, I don't want to pass over it, but I also don't want to go against a bill that isn't detrimental to engineers.
Well, if you could email to me a little bit of a summary on that conversation that you had with Anath yesterday.
Mhm.
This is coming from Dave Lontman, and he is reading that bill, and his concern is that it passes a lot of the liability on to the engineers because we're not specifically protected. I'm certainly not the expert in it, so I'm going to trust his opinion on it. He's been doing this for 40 years. But if you've got some information that will help ease some of his concerns, I'd love to be able to share that with him and back off pressuring you for more information.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, but yeah, Dave's an important member. We want to make sure that his concerns are addressed. And I can go as far as, if he wants a call with our general counsel. I don't know how well you know Kurt, but Kurt's whole career has been in this arena with the engineers, and he understands all of this very well. And I can certainly set up a call between the two of them if that would make Dave feel better.
Yeah, that would be helpful. I'll get with you offline on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, other than that, like I said, this bill's been looked at several times, 266 and 287. And so as of now, we're just kind of monitoring them to see what happens. I still think, as we get all these transportation bills moving, there's going to be bits and pieces of each one moved around to other bills. So we'll just be watching out for that. But we seem to be in good shape. So that moves us to Senate Bill 1032. This is the bill that would abolish the Transportation Commission. It does now have a companion in the House, which is 7049. That's a committee bill out of Transportation and Modal Subcommittee. I still don't know exactly why they're after the Transportation Commission, but I think it's part of a bigger picture where they're trying to take out a lot of these types of commissions. But as you can see, it has not moved at all in the House, or except for the subcommittee, doing the committee bill in the House. It's just now getting its referral. So long way to go for that bill. But we've talked about it that Senator Gruters supported Trump, so he's kind of sideways with the governor. And we've been told in the House by Chairman Payne, who is the chair of the Infrastructure Strategies Committee, which would be the second committee in that list, that it's going to pass one committee, but it won't go any further than that because he's not going to bring it up and put it on their agenda. So if all that is true, I don't think this bill is much to worry about. And then let's see, 1226 and 1301. Senate Bill 1226 hasn't moved. 1301 was in Transportation and Modals yesterday, where we were with our bill. And there were a ton of questions on this bill. And it seems like it's got some substantive parts to it for our members, but some of it gets into ports. Well, the Ports Council stood up and opposed the bill, as did the Airport Council. And their problem is, and Derek, you may have a little more information on this too. There's parts in there that would make our ports and our airports and other transportation facilities, buses and all kinds of stuff, wouldn't be allowed to display any messages, of some of the social issues the country faces, and even so far as to say, like, they couldn't post anything, related to COVID-19 or other things that come from the CDC, which forces, some of these folks to be in conflict with federal law and possibly and probably the Constitution. So Representative Abbott spent a whole lot of time yesterday saying, I'll have to get back to you on that. I'll have to get back to you on that, when they were asking questions, but it went on for some time. So the bill did pass out of the committee yesterday, but Abbott, he said at the end, he's like, he said, I know I have a lot of work to do. He said, so I'll be getting with you all individually. So a lot of issues there. Do you have any more information on that?
I do. I do. Good morning, everyone. So I spent most of yesterday afternoon and the evening with DOT and the governor's office on this because of the Airport Council standing in opposition on the bill. And that's a sidebar conversation for another time. But I'll tell you that 1301 is the department's bill. I had a conversation with Lita Kelly, the chief of staff, who's a personal friend. It's very important to them. That language really is section 5 of the bill, is that the ports and airports have concerns about came directly from the governor's office. When the governor released his recommended budget, he also released a recommended implementing bill. That language in section 5 was also an implementing bill. So this is directly from the governor's office, put into Abbott's bill. It's currently not in the Senate version, but it is of great importance in the governor's office. And their plan basically is, they would hold your monies until you removed any signage in that approval. The concern for airports, of course, is FAA regulations and things of that nature. Abbott was caught off guard because he hadn't heard any concerns leading up to that. And I know the Airport Council did not have any conversation with the department prior to, and as one of their lobbyists, again, I'll speak about that separately, but that bill is again of great importance to the secretary. Secretary Perdue is heavily involved in that bill as well from DOT. And so I don't see the language coming out that raise all the concerns. The department has made it known that they're willing to work with any and all parties to massage the language, but they're not removing that language. And so that bill will continue to move. At some point, they'll have to amend that language into the Senate version. But in my many discussions with DOT yesterday in the governor's office, this is a priority for the governor and Secretary Perdue.
Okay. Yeah, that's good additional information there, Derek.
I tried, Mr. Douglas. I tried a little bit, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate all you and John have done. I mean, we're sitting, for the third week of session, we're sitting in a pretty good spot right now. We fixed a couple of things that we didn't like, and our bill seems to be moving, and we've got some others. Next week, I will have additional bills, the main ones being some licensing bills. There is a interstate mobility bill that's similar to the universal licensing bill that we saw last year. But it's written completely differently, and we're actually trying to figure out if we're actually in it or not. It doesn't call out 471 specifically, but there's some language in there we think applies to everyone that might get a hold of us, but we're looking into that one. There's also one that, I don't understand what they're after here, but that says basically if you have somebody come from out of state that wants a license here, and the board determines that they don't meet the criteria or the license that they have, in our case, the PE license they have from another state, that state's criteria for getting that license aren't substantially the same as our rules here. And so for that reason, they would deny the license. With this bill, then that decision would then be taken to the secretary of the department, In our case, obviously DBPR, and the secretary could overrule the board. And the question immediately comes up, well, what's the board even there for if the secretary is just going to make the decision? And then it becomes a political thing as well, right? Because a lot of these agencies answer to the governor, and so the governor's office would be involved in that decision as well. And I'll talk a little bit more with CLGR about this in a few minutes, but I think we're going to be in opposition to that bill. I've already talked to several people about it, including a lobbyist I've known for a long time. She represents the CPAs, and they're wrapped up in it, and so she's wanting, we're all wanting, to sort of form a group and not only to do something about this bill and possibly the other one I just mentioned, but basically just start getting the message out. Hey, just leave us alone on your license. This isn't helping, and it's not good. Especially when you're messing with licenses such as ours that are so closely related to health, safety, and welfare. Go pick on the hair braiders and leave us alone for a while, but we'll see how that goes. So that's about it for me. Did anybody have any questions?
I had one. Alan, I
Sure.
joined a few minutes late. I don't know if it has come up recently, but is there been any discussion about the disbursement of the previous Hillsborough County transportation tax that was collected and has been kind of held in limbo for a while?
It's not something I've looked into, but I can. Would that come through the budget process?
No, it's not necessarily legislative. I guess it was there was a ruling by the Florida Supreme Court, I guess, to reimburse it. It was a sales tax.
Oh, the one that was ruled, the one that was struck down in court?
Yeah, and then they were going to strip the transit component out of it, and I guess I have not heard anything lately.
Right.
It's like,
No,
I don't know, it could be close to $1 billion or 700 million. It's a chunk of money for the, Hillsborough County and the local governments within the county.
Right. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure who I would turn to up here to look into that. Might be something we'd want to talk to the county and
Okay.
see where see where it's all at.
Yeah, the last I had read, I
Yeah,
guess it was held up in the state government.
Yeah, we had a
Yeah,
meeting
Alan,
with
hey,
one of
this
the,
is,
with
I
one of the
was gonna say, this is Sean
legislators.
Donahue.
Yep.
It's in the
Go ahead,
governor's
Sean.
budget it's in the governor's budget to return that money back to Hillsborough County for transportation purposes.
Mhm.
Representative Karen Gonzalez Pittman is kind of leading that charge, as well as Senator Collins. The entire Tampa Bay delegation is in favor of returning those funds back to Hillsborough County for transportation. And I think it's heading that way, but my understanding is it will be a budget item, at least unless Derek understands better.
No, I mean, that would be the time frame they would do it. It's always on the budget conference if it's a budget item.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. Anybody else?
Any updates on the stormwater rule, Alan?
Yeah, that's going to be part of our discussion at CLGR. Jeff addressed that on his call earlier this morning. Yeah, both ratification bills are out there. Basically, where we're at right now is, still in a neutral position. There's parts of it that our members think are good, parts of it they think is bad, especially the cost. I do know I was on a call probably a couple of weeks ago with home builders, and Lennar Homes was on the call and some others, and they're gearing up to fight it. They're saying it's going to be, it will increase the cost of a new home 25%. And it, maybe it will, maybe it won't. It's just the numbers that they're talking. But we're still looking at 1.5 billion in regulatory costs over the next 5 years. So, that's a big ticket item. And there's another bill, and I forget the number of it off the top of my head, but Jeff is going to join CLGR at 11 and explain it to him. And see if they feel any different. You know, the folks that are saying we should probably remain neutral are the ones that have been working on this with us and for us. You know, Bob Higgins and Kelly and you know, Gary Ward, and you know, there's a whole group of people that have been involved in this, and you know, they were all on the same page this morning that you know, we stay neutral. Some of them were saying we should go in and support this piece or that piece, but it's really not that kind of a deal. It's kind of it's all or nothing kind of thing. You either support it as a whole or you oppose it as a whole. You know.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Alan, it's Joe Locke. Maybe I missed it. Are we tracking House Bill 1275 at all?
What does that bill do?
It's the Strategic Infrastructure Investment Plan.
That sounds like something else that'll be coming through the budget. I can look into it, make a note here and take a look. And Derek, probably next week, if we can, maybe we can sit down and talk a little bit more about the budget. It's not something I've paid a whole lot of attention to so far.
Okay, absolutely.
But, it's getting to be that time of year. So.
Absolutely. And Alan, real quickly on 1275. So that's a birth bill, the Sigley bill. I can just share with everyone that neither bill has been heard yet in the House or Senate. Next week is supposed to be the ending in the House. If you haven't been heard in your first committee of reference through week 4, which is next week, typically you're deemed to be dead or near death as a bill. And so neither bill has been heard yet. This bill will need to be heard next week. That committee is scheduled to meet on Wednesday of next week, which is the 31st. The agenda for that meeting comes out no later than Monday at 4:30. So it'll need to be on that agenda. I don't think she's not scheduled to meet beyond next week, meaning that first committee of reference, but it has not been heard yet in either side. And Alan, I agree with your request.
All right, I'll get with Cheryl and get something set up. All right, anybody else? All right, well, I appreciate your time this morning, and hope you all have a good weekend.
Thank you, you too.
Thanks, Alan.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye.
Alan.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
Thank you.